The camp was quiet that evening, but it was not a silence of peace. It was the silence of hunger, heavy and restless, wrapping itself around every tent and every tired soul within. Wind moved through the canvas like a low breath, lifting edges, letting in the cool that reminded us how thin our shelter really was. I watched her, as I often did, the young mother in the next row, careful with her movements as if any sudden motion might spill the little hope she had left. Her name traveled softly among us, a small thread in the cloth of the camp, and it always carried a kind of gentle respect. She had the hands of someone who used to write on chalkboards, hands that remembered clean rooms and the rhythm of school bells. Now they smoothed blankets and mended torn sleeves with the patience of someone who knows time has slowed to a stubborn drip. Her children sat close, their faces lit by the last coil of sky. Hunger makes children quiet in a way that scares you. They pressed their shoulders to hers, leaning into the only home that still felt real. The warmth of her body and the steadiness of her breath. Her father lay on the mat beside them, an old man with eyes that held both storm and harbor. He watched his daughter as if watching a candle that could still save a long night. When she lifted her head, I saw the familiar shadow cross her face. It was the shadow of counting and coming up short, of measuring the day and finding that the day had measured her instead. Guilt lived in that shadow, an old ache that no one should have to carry, yet so many of us did. It was not that she feared hunger for herself. What weighed her down was the smallness of what she could give, the ones she loved. There was a single heel of bread in their tin, hard like a memory that refuses to soften. She looked at it, and then away, as if it were a mirror that told an unkind truth. Around us, pots cooled without steam and night sounds replaced conversation. Somewhere a child whimpered and was soothed by a lullaby that stretched thin but did not break. I felt the camp bend under the quiet, the way a branch bends under snow. In that dimming light, worry gathered like a slow fog, and I thought about how hunger is not only a gnawing in the stomach, it is also a silence in the mind, an empty corridor where every step echoes. The bread lay between them like a question that no one dared to answer. The children's eyes kept drifting toward it, not in demand but in quiet longing, as if even looking at it too much might make it vanish. The mother's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the tin, then stopped halfway. Her breath caught in her chest. She seemed torn between two pains, the ache of giving too little or the ache of giving nothing at all. It was then that her father stirred, slow and deliberate, as if age had trained him to move with purpose rather than speed. His hand, thin but steady, reached past her hesitation. He took the bread, not with greed, but with reverence, as though he were lifting something sacred. He held it in both palms for a moment, gazing at it the way a priest might gaze at a candle before lighting it. His voice, when it came, was not loud, but it carried a strength that filled the small tent. He began to break the bread. Not quickly, not carelessly. Each tear was a ceremony, each fragment offered as if it were more than it seemed. He handed the first piece to his daughter, then to the children, then finally kept the smallest part for himself. The bread, divided into fragile portions, passed from hand to hand, and when the children bit into their share, a change moved through the air. Their faces softened, their eyes brightened, not with fullness but with a strange, quiet joy. The mother's eyes glistened, confusion mixing with relief. She could not understand how her father managed to turn so little into something that felt so large. She had expected sorrow, perhaps even tears of frustration, but instead there was laughter, small, tired laughter, like sparks in the dark. The old man chewed slowly, smiling through the cracks of his worn face, and said gently, though not with words meant only for his family, but for all who were listening in the silence of hunger. Gratitude is not measured by how much we hold, but by how deeply we cherish what is given. Outside, the night pressed closer, yet inside that tent, warmth gathered. It was not the kind of warmth that comes from fire, but the kind that comes when human hearts decide to hold on to light. I watched the mother's shoulders lower, the weight easing just enough for her to breathe differently. In that small act of bread breaking, the despair that had threatened to drown her found no place to rest. The night deepened, and with it came a quiet that felt different from the silence before. This was not the silence of hunger, but of hearts gently resting after a storm. The children, though their stomachs still carried the ache of emptiness, had drifted into sleep with faint smiles, their lips marked with crumbs as though they had feasted. The old man's breathing was slow and steady, his frame curled beside them, like a guardian of both memory and hope. The mother sat awake, her eyes tracing the dim glow of the lantern as it flickered against the canvas. She held the memory of her father's hands, the way he had broken the bread, as if he were breaking open despair itself. Something stirred in her chest, fragile but undeniable. She had spent so long believing she was failing her children because she could not provide enough. Yet tonight had shown her a truth she had overlooked. Her children had not asked for more than she had. They had asked only for love, for closeness, for the warmth of being seen and held. Gratitude had turned a single piece of bread into something far greater than food. It had turned it into a lesson, into a memory her children would carry longer than any hunger they might endure. She realized that in her father's eyes, she had seen no shame, no disappointment, only strength, the kind of strength that comes from choosing to see blessings in the smallest of offerings. She lay down then, between her children, pulling them close. For the first time in many nights, her body did not tremble with guilt. She closed her eyes, and though her hunger remained, peace settled over her like a blanket she had long forgotten she owned. Tomorrow would bring its hardships, as every day had, but she now carried something new within her, a secret her father had passed on without needing many words. Happiness was not waiting at the end of abundance. Happiness was here, hidden in the act of sharing, in the courage to give thanks, even when there seemed little to be thankful for. Gratitude, she understood now, was not just a feeling, but a choice, one that could turn even the smallest of moments into a well of strength. As dawn approached, painting the horizon with a faint promise of light, she pressed a soft kiss to her children's foreheads and whispered a silent vow. They would not only survive this journey, they would carry forward the secret to true happiness, and that secret was gratitude. In life, we often wait for abundance before allowing ourselves to be grateful, forgetting that gratitude is what makes even the smallest moments feel abundant. The refugee mother's story is a reminder that joy is not born from what we hold in our hands, but from what we nurture in our hearts. Gratitude transforms emptiness into fullness, despair into peace, and hardship into a lesson we carry forward. May we all learn to find happiness in the little we have, for that is where life's truest richness lies. If this story touched you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.